As a brain doctor with over 30 years of experience, I've seen hundreds of patients walk into my clinic smiling, thinking they were perfectly fine, and then, just days later, end up in the emergency room with a stroke. What most people over 60 don't realize is that the most dangerous hours of the day are not in the afternoon or at night. They're the first few moments after you wake up. That peaceful morning stretch, that first sip of coffee, that rush to the bathroom. These simple acts can quietly put enormous pressure on your brain's blood vessels. In the early morning, your blood is thicker, your arteries stiffer, and your brain's oxygen levels lower than at any other time. It's when your body is most fragile, yet it's also when most people make a simple but deadly mistake. A mistake so common, millions repeat it every sunrise without realizing it triples their risk of stroke. And it often begins before they've even left the bed. Every morning between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., something happens inside the human body that most people never notice. Yet it determines life or death for many seniors. It's not chance, it's chemistry. When you first wake up, your body shifts from a state of deep rest to sudden alertness. Your heart rate begins to rise, your blood vessels tighten, and your brain demands oxygen at a faster pace. For someone under 40, that transition usually goes unnoticed. But for someone over 60, it can be the most dangerous moment of the entire day. During sleep, your body loses fluid through breathing and perspiration, even though you don't feel it. By morning, you're mildly dehydrated. Your blood has become thicker, stickier, and slower to flow. The simple act of standing up suddenly increases pressure in your arteries. Your heart must push harder to circulate blood that's already thicker than it should be. If there's any plaque in the arteries, that extra force can loosen it, sending a tiny clot racing toward the brain. That's how many strokes begin, quietly, invisibly, in the first hour after waking. I've seen patients who looked completely healthy come in for a regular checkup on Monday, and by Friday they were gone. No warning signs, no dramatic symptoms, just a fatal event that happened before breakfast. One patient, a retired teacher, told me she woke up feeling slightly dizzy one morning. She assumed it was low blood sugar, drank her usual coffee, and went on with her day. By mid-morning, she couldn't speak. The MRI showed a blockage in a small artery of her brain. The trigger wasn't random, it was her morning routine. Science confirms what experience has taught me. The brain's vulnerability peaks in the morning. Blood pressure surges naturally as your body prepares to face the day. Hormones like cortisol rise sharply, tightening arteries and stimulating alertness. It's a helpful survival mechanism in youth, but in older adults, it's a perfect storm. Dehydration thickens the blood, higher pressure stresses the vessel walls, and any tiny clot that forms can lodge in the brain's smallest arteries. This is why more than half of all strokes occur within those morning hours. And yet, there's a cruel irony. Many seniors unknowingly make this risk worse. They wake up, skip their first glass of water, and go straight for coffee or medication, both of which can dehydrate the body even further. Within minutes, blood becomes even more viscous, increasing the chance of clot formation. The brain, which depends on smooth, oxygen-rich flow, starts the day already deprived. I often tell my patients, you don't have to fear the morning. You just have to understand it. The body after 60 doesn't recover from dehydration as fast. The kidneys filter slower, and the brain's blood vessels lose elasticity. What was once a harmless routine decades ago now becomes dangerous. A brisk shower, a fast cup of coffee, and a rush out the door, all while your brain is begging for hydration and stability. One of my patients, a 68-year-old former engineer, insisted on his early routine. 2 cups of black coffee before breakfast, no water. He told me half-jokingly that he didn't need water because coffee was mostly water anyway. A week later, his wife called to say he had collapsed while buttoning his shirt. He survived, but with partial paralysis on one side. When we looked at his blood tests and imaging, the cause was clear: a morning stroke triggered by dehydration and high viscosity. It's not just about what you drink, but when you drink it. The brain's arteries, after hours of rest, are like dry riverbeds waiting for flow. Without early hydration, blood cells cluster together like sludge, slowing oxygen delivery. The first few minutes of your morning determine how well your brain will be nourished for the rest of the day. So when I say the danger starts before breakfast, I mean it literally. Your brain wakes up before you do, demanding oxygen, nutrients, and fluid. If you don't provide them, it struggles. If you pair that struggle with caffeine, blood pressure spikes, or rapid movement, you create the ideal environment for a stroke to strike silently. That's why every senior should think of morning not as a time of routine, but as a time of risk management. It's not about fear, it's about awareness. If you understand what's happening inside your body in those first 2 hours, you can take control instead of leaving it to chance. Because those who start their day the wrong way rarely get a second warning. And those who do often wish they'd made one small change sooner. There's one simple adjustment that can prevent this entire chain reaction, yet most people skip it every single morning. I'll explain exactly what that mistake is and why it silently triples your stroke risk in just a moment. The most common mistake I see among people over 60 happens before they've even had a chance to think about it. It's automatic, comforting, and for many, it's the ritual that starts their day, reaching for a cup of coffee or taking their morning pills before they drink a single sip of water. It seems harmless, even healthy, especially when you've done it for decades. But inside your body, something very different is happening. The moment caffeine or medication enters a dehydrated system, the brain's blood vessels tighten, your heart rate accelerates, and your blood becomes thicker. That combination silently multiplies your stroke risk. When you wake up, your body is already short on fluids. During the night, your body loses water through breathing and perspiration, even if you never move. Your brain is about 75% water, and after 8 hours without a sip, its delicate network of blood vessels becomes slightly constricted. Then, instead of rehydrating first thing in the morning, most people go straight for their coffee. Caffeine acts as a diuretic. It tells your kidneys to release even more water. So instead of replenishing what you've lost, you're draining the body further, exactly when your brain needs hydration the most. I remember a patient named Carol, 72 years old, who prided herself on her morning discipline. She woke up every day at 6:30 a.m., made a strong cup of black coffee, and took her blood pressure medication before heading out for her morning walk. One morning, she felt lightheaded but brushed it off. 10 minutes later, she collapsed on her porch. The diagnosis, an ischemic stroke. She survived, but with partial weakness in her right arm. What triggered it? Dehydration, caffeine, and a sudden spike in blood pressure within minutes of waking. She had been unknowingly priming her body for that moment for years. Coffee isn't the only culprit. Many seniors take their daily pills immediately after waking up. Cholesterol medication, pain relievers, antidepressants, or blood pressure tablets, often on an empty stomach and without water. Some of these medications rely on proper hydration to circulate safely through the bloodstream. Without it, they can concentrate in the blood and affect vessel function, further increasing strain on the cardiovascular system. It's a silent pattern that repeats in millions of homes every morning. Then comes the second mistake, sudden movement. When you sit up quickly after lying flat all night, your blood pressure temporarily drops before it rebounds. That's why many seniors feel dizzy or see stars when they stand up too fast. The brain, already dehydrated, momentarily loses steady oxygen supply. In a fragile vascular system, that short disruption can be enough to trigger a clot or cause a mini stroke. It's subtle, a slight stumble, a few seconds of blurred vision, but it's often the body's early warning that something deeper is wrong. And there's more. The shock of a hot shower immediately after waking can also add to the risk. The sudden temperature change dilates your skin's blood vessels, forcing your heart to work harder to stabilize circulation. Combine that with dehydration and caffeine, and the morning becomes a cardiovascular stress test your body never asked for. Many seniors underestimate how much these small choices add up. Each one alone might not cause harm, but together they form the perfect storm. Thick blood, constricted vessels, and fluctuating blood pressure, all within the first hour of your day. Skipping breakfast can make things even worse. When your stomach is empty, your blood sugar dips, and your body releases stress hormones to compensate. This raises your heart rate and blood pressure even more, adding another layer of strain on the brain's delicate vessels. It's why some seniors experience tremors, dizziness, or a buzzing sensation in the head before lunch. Their body is struggling to stabilize itself under pressure it never should have faced. I've seen this pattern so many times that I can almost predict it. The story always starts the same way. Doctor, I thought I was doing everything right. And yet, this one small routine, skipping water, rushing caffeine, and moving too quickly, quietly stacks the odds against them. It's not about eliminating coffee or medications. It's about timing, awareness, and respect for how your body changes after 60. The brain at this age is more sensitive to hydration levels and blood flow fluctuations. It needs a gentler start. If you simply begin your day by sitting up slowly, taking a deep breath, and drinking one full glass of room temperature water before anything else, you can reverse much of that risk. It allows your blood to thin naturally, your vessels to open, and your brain to receive the oxygen it's craving. Yet most people still skip this step because they don't feel the danger immediately. The effects build quietly over time until one morning the body decides it's had enough. The truth is, stroke doesn't strike out of nowhere. It's built habit by habit over years of small morning mistakes. And now that you know the most common one, it's time to look at the real warning signs, the early clues that your brain may already be under pressure, even if you feel fine. Every story I tell my patients begins the same way, with someone who thought they were perfectly fine. They had no chest pain, no severe headache, no obvious sign that something was wrong. Yet within minutes, their life changed. One of those stories belongs to a man in his late 60s named Robert. He was strong, active, and proud of his morning routine. Every day he woke up at 6 a.m., brushed his teeth, shaved, and made his first cup of coffee before heading out to his garden. But one morning, as he leaned over the sink, he felt a sudden wave of dizziness. His toothbrush slipped from his hand, and he had to grab the counter to keep from falling. He told himself it was nothing, just getting older. He rinsed his mouth, finished brushing, and went about his morning. By the afternoon, his speech began to slur. His wife noticed the right side of his mouth drooping slightly. By the time they reached the hospital, the scan confirmed it. A transient ischemic attack, what we call a mini-stroke. The doctors told him he was lucky. The clot had dissolved on its own before permanent damage set in. But as his neurologist, I knew it wasn't luck. It was a warning. His morning habits had pushed his brain to the edge. Dehydration, sudden movement, and caffeine had triggered the perfect storm. Robert recovered, but he never forgot that morning. He now starts each day slowly with water and breathing exercises, grateful for a second chance. Then there's Linda, a retired teacher in her early 70s. She'd been in excellent health, always on her feet, always busy. Every morning she would wake up, skip breakfast, take her medication with a sip of coffee, and jump straight into a hot shower to wake herself up. One morning, her husband heard a loud thud. He found her on the bathroom floor, unconscious, the shower still running. The paramedics revived her, and after several tests, the diagnosis was clear: a drop in blood pressure followed by a brief loss of oxygen to the brain. In simple terms, she fainted because her circulation couldn't handle the shock. Her body was dehydrated, her blood pressure unstable, and the heat from the shower had expanded her blood vessels too quickly. She survived, but she's never forgotten the lesson. It wasn't my heart, she told me later. It was my morning. These stories are not rare. I see versions of them every single week, small, quiet events that most seniors dismiss as nothing serious. But the truth is, these tiny incidents are often early warnings from the brain. They whisper before they scream. They give you clues long before disaster strikes, if only you know how to recognize them. The first and most common sign is dizziness upon standing. Many older adults feel a lightheaded sensation when they get out of bed or bend down. They laugh it off, saying, "I just stood up too fast." In reality, it's your brain telling you it's not getting enough blood. Each dizzy spell is a momentary lack of oxygen, a small rehearsal for something far more serious. Another sign is blurred vision in the morning. When blood flow to the optic nerve fluctuates, vision can become hazy or dim. Some seniors notice it lasts only a few seconds and ignore it, but those seconds matter. They reveal the same vascular instability that leads to stroke. Slurred speech or difficulty finding words, even briefly, is another subtle red flag. Many people blame fatigue or just waking up, but temporary speech changes often mean part of the brain isn't receiving enough oxygen. I've had patients tell me, "It went away after a few minutes, so I didn't think it mattered." But that few minutes could have been the moment your brain was crying for help. Then there's morning brain fog, confusion, slow thinking, or the feeling that your head is heavy and your thoughts are trapped behind a curtain. It's not always age or sleep quality. It's often the result of sluggish blood flow to the brain's frontal lobes, starving your neurons of oxygen and energy. It's your body's way of saying, "I'm not ready to start the day like this." When these symptoms appear occasionally, they may seem harmless. But when they repeat, especially in the morning, they form a pattern that points to the earliest stages of vascular strain. Most seniors don't recognize the signs until something irreversible happens. I've lost count of how many times I've heard the words, "I thought it was nothing," but the body rarely says nothing. Every drop of dizziness, every flicker of blurred vision, every forgotten word is a message, one that becomes louder each time it's ignored. These are not random moments of aging. They are the body's early alarms, soft enough to miss, but urgent enough to save your life if you listen. Because behind each of these stories, the toothbrush that slipped, the shower that turned dangerous, lies the same preventable cause, the same morning mistake. And soon, I'll show you how a few simple habits can protect your brain and make every sunrise safer than the one before. After years of treating patients who suffered strokes and mini strokes within hours of waking, I began teaching a simple routine, one that takes less than 5 minutes but can save your brain, your memory, and your independence. The secret isn't in a pill or an expensive supplement. It's in how you start your morning, because the first few minutes after you open your eyes set the rhythm for the rest of your day, and more importantly, for how your brain receives oxygen and blood flow. The first step is the easiest and yet the most ignored. When you wake up, don't rush to sit or stand. Instead, pause for a moment. Let your body adjust. Then, sit up slowly and take 3 deep breaths. This simple act stabilizes your blood pressure, allowing your heart to gradually shift from rest to wakefulness. Deep breathing also expands your lungs, increasing oxygen intake after hours of shallow, nighttime breathing. Most people underestimate how much oxygen their brain loses during sleep. Those first 3 deep breaths refill the system, like restarting an engine that's been idle all night. Next, before you do anything else, before coffee, medication, or even checking your phone, drink 1 full glass of room temperature water. Not cold, not hot. Room temperature water absorbs fastest, and it helps thin your blood naturally, improving circulation to your brain and heart. Think of it as washing away the thickness that built up overnight. Your blood viscosity begins to normalize, your arteries open slightly, and your brain's capillaries start flowing smoothly again. It's a quiet reset that every cell in your body thanks you for. Many people ask me, "Doctor, does 1 glass really make a difference?" My answer is always the same. Yes, it does, because it changes what happens next. When you hydrate before adding caffeine or medication, you protect your vessels from unnecessary stress. Coffee, while not inherently bad, acts as a diuretic. It makes you lose more fluid than it gives. Taking it on an empty, dehydrated system compounds the strain. But when you drink water first, you create a buffer. Your heart doesn't have to work as hard, and your brain maintains a steady oxygen supply. The next step is about timing. Wait at least 20 minutes before consuming caffeine or taking morning medication. That short window allows your body to rehydrate, your blood pressure to stabilize, and your digestive system to wake up. During those 20 minutes, use the time to stretch gently. Roll your shoulders, flex your ankles, or raise your arms above your head. These movements are not just for flexibility. They help activate circulation throughout your body. Gentle stretching pumps oxygen-rich blood from your legs and arms back toward your core and brain, reducing the likelihood of clot formation. I often compare this moment to warming up a car on a cold morning. If you drive immediately without letting the engine circulate oil, the parts grind against each other. Your body is no different. It needs time to lubricate, to restore smooth, even flow before you place demands on it. A few deep breaths, a glass of water, and slow stretching achieve exactly that. For those who meditate or pray in the morning, this is also the perfect time for mindful breathing. Close your eyes for 1 minute, breathe in through your nose, and exhale slowly through your mouth. Feel the rhythm of your heartbeat. This isn't spiritual advice, it's biological. Slow breathing activates your vagus nerve, which calms your cardiovascular system and helps regulate heart rhythm. It tells your body you are safe. That signal alone can lower morning blood pressure spikes that lead to stroke in older adults. Patients who adopt this simple routine often tell me their mornings feel different, clearer, steadier, calmer. One woman in her 70s said her morning headaches vanished within a week. Another told me her energy stayed consistent throughout the day for the first time in years. These changes aren't coincidences. They're signs that the brain is finally receiving stable oxygen flow instead of struggling through sudden surges and drops. And here's what's remarkable. This morning routine doesn't just reduce the risk of stroke, it also enhances memory and focus. When your brain receives steady circulation upon waking, neurons fire more efficiently. You think faster, recall better, and feel more alert without the caffeine crash that usually follows a rushed morning. The body after 60 thrives on rhythm and respect. It no longer tolerates shock, sudden movement, rapid caffeine, or skipped hydration. What it needs instead is flow, gradual awakening, and gentle stimulation. These small acts, breathing, drinking, waiting, stretching, might seem too simple to matter, but they form a shield a shield against clotting, against pressure spikes, against the silent attacks that happen when you least expect them. I tell my patients that if you master these first 5 minutes of your day, you protect the next 24 hours of your brain's life. You give your heart and mind the stability they've earned. And for those who practice this routine consistently, mornings no longer bring danger. They bring renewal. But to truly protect yourself, there's one final piece of the puzzle: how to turn this awareness into lifelong prevention and peace of mind. When I look back on the thousands of patients I've treated over the years, one truth stands above all the rest. It's not fear that saves lives, it's awareness. Fear makes people freeze, but awareness gives them power. And for anyone over 60, understanding how your body changes in the morning is one of the most powerful forms of prevention you'll ever have. Because the difference between vulnerability and vitality often comes down to a few mindful choices made before breakfast. Too many people think brain health after 60 is about pills or genetics or luck. But the truth is, it's about rhythm. Your body operates on a clock. Your heart, your brain, your circulation, your hormones, all moving in a delicate balance. And when you respect that rhythm, especially at the start of your day, you give your brain the best possible chance to thrive. That's what the first water rule is really about. It's not a trend or a trick. It's a signal to your brain, to your blood vessels, and to your entire cardiovascular system that you are beginning the day with care, not chaos. One glass of water before coffee or medication might sound too simple to matter, but simplicity is often the most sophisticated form of prevention. You're not just hydrating, you're thinning your blood naturally, improving oxygen delivery, and easing the morning workload on your heart. You're giving your brain time to catch up with your heartbeat. You're protecting the network of vessels that carry your thoughts, your memories, and your very identity. When I share this with my patients, many are skeptical at first. They've lived decades believing serious diseases require complicated solutions. But a few weeks into this new routine, they start to notice subtle changes: clearer thinking, steadier balance, fewer dizzy spells. It's not magic, it's biology responding to respect. The body, when treated gently, rewards you quietly. It doesn't ask for perfection, just consistency. And that's the message I want every senior to take to heart. Prevention isn't about fear or restriction. It's about empowerment. It's about knowing that your actions matter more than your age. Every glass of water, every slow breath, every mindful pause before caffeine is a vote in favor of your longevity. It's a way of saying to your brain, I'm on your side. It's also about paying attention to the small signs your body gives you. That brief moment of dizziness, that flicker of blurred vision, that feeling of fog. They are not just annoyances to shrug off. They're reminders that your brain is talking to you. Listen to it. Write those moments down. Tell your doctor about them. Awareness is protection, and silence is the only real danger. I always encourage my patients to share this information with their loved ones, because knowledge like this doesn't just save one person. It ripples through families. When a parent changes their morning routine, their children and grandchildren notice. They learn by example that health is not luck, it's attention. And when they see you thriving, alert, and independent, it inspires them to care for their own bodies with the same mindfulness. You have every reason to feel hopeful. The brain is incredibly resilient, even after decades of stress or neglect. It can adapt, heal, and grow stronger with the right support. Every morning is a chance to give it that support, to reset the balance, rehydrate the cells, and restore steady circulation. You can't control every variable in life, but you can control how your day begins. And that, more than anything, shapes how long and how well you live. So tomorrow morning, before you reach for your coffee, pause for just a moment. Sit up slowly, breathe deeply, drink your water. Feel your body waking up gently, safely. Let that small ritual become your promise to yourself, your daily act of protection. Because the truth is, small habits protect great minds, and your brain deserves that protection every single morning.